Get your filthy trash off my property." The words cut through the damp afternoon air, like a knife. A heavy leather boot slammed into a woven display basket, dozens of delicate white roses scattered across the dirty concrete. Their fragile petals were crushed instantly, under the man's expensive heel. Lily let out a sharp gasp. She was a young woman wearing a faded, oversized sweater that offered no protection against the autumn chill. She scrambled to her knees on the rough pavement. Her hands shook violently as she tried to gather the broken stems of her only livelihood. Standing over her was Marcus Thorne. He was the wealthy owner of the entire retail block. His custom-tailored suit starkly contrasted with the ugly sneer on his face. "I said get out." Thorne pointed a fat, ring-covered finger directly at her face. "And take these pathetic beggars with you." He waved his hand in disgust toward a man and a little girl sitting on the edge of a nearby planter box. The man was wearing a grease-stained delivery jacket. His baseball cap was pulled low over his eyes. But he didn't flinch. He didn't cower. Instead, Lucas calmly stood up. He took a slow, deliberate step forward and gently helped Lily to her feet. He didn't yell back at the landlord. He didn't raise his fists. But the cold, calculated look in his dark eyes made Thorne instinctively take a step backward. Lucas pulled his 6-year-old daughter, Mia, closer to his leg. He wrapped a protective arm around her shoulders, shielding her from the flying debris and the toxic anger. Kindness is never free, and the man upstairs is always watching. If you believe that God always protects honest fathers, leave the declaration, "I believe in a father's love and justice," in the comments below. What Thorne didn't know was that he had just insulted the worst possible person. Lucas wasn't a broke delivery driver. He was Lucas Sterling, the billionaire founder of the Sterling Hospitality Group. He owned luxury hotels and retail chains across 3 continents. But today, he wasn't wearing his Rolex or his designer suits. Today was about teaching his daughter a lesson that money couldn't buy. Lucas wanted Mia to understand the real world. He wanted her to see how people treated you when they thought you had nothing to offer them. They had spent the entire morning walking the city streets in thrift store clothes. They had been ignored by passing strangers. They had been shooed away from upscale bakery windows. By 2 in the afternoon, little Mia's legs were aching. Her stomach was rumbling. They had sat down to rest near Lily's small flower stand just a few minutes earlier. Unlike the other merchants on the block, Lily didn't chase them away. She didn't look at Lucas's dirty jacket with disgust. Instead, she noticed Mia rubbing her tired eyes. Lily reached into her worn tote bag and pulled out a cheap plastic wrapper. Inside was a simple ham and cheese sandwich. It was her only meal for the long 12-hour shift. Without a second thought, she broke the sandwich perfectly in half. She walked over with a warm, genuine smile and handed the larger piece to the little girl. "Here you go, sweetheart," Lily had whispered, her voice soft and comforting. A growing girl needs her energy. Lucas had watched in quiet amazement as this struggling young woman gave away her own food to a child she thought was homeless. He saw the worn-out soles of Lily's shoes. He noticed the overdue utility bills peeking out of her apron pocket. Yet, her spirit remained incredibly generous. Warm moments like this remind us that humanity still exists. Hit that subscribe button to spread the value of kindness and follow this amazing dad's journey. But that beautiful moment was violently interrupted. Thorne hadn't just come to yell. He had brought a debt collector with him. A massive man with crossed arms stood silently behind the landlord, blocking the only exit from the alley. "You are 3 weeks late on your booth rent, Lily," Thorne barked, crossing his arms over his chest. "I'm done listening to your pathetic excuses." Lily's eyes filled with panicked tears. "Mr. Thorne, please," she begged, holding her hands tightly together. "My mother's hospital bills cleaned out my savings this month. I just need a few more days. I have a big wedding order coming in on Friday." Thorne let out a cruel, barking laugh. Friday? He pulled a folded piece of paper from his inside jacket pocket. It was her lease agreement. With a slow, deliberate motion, he ripped the document completely in half. He let the pieces fall onto the crushed white roses. Your lease is terminated. Thorne stepped closer, invading her personal space. I have a corporate coffee chain, willing to pay triple for this corner. You have exactly 1 hour to pack up this garbage and get off my property. If you aren't gone by then, I'm having everything thrown into a dumpster. Lily choked on a sob, her hands flying to her mouth. This small stand was everything she had left. It was the only way she was keeping her mother's medical care afloat. Thorne then turned his hateful gaze back to Lucas. And as for you, he pointed his finger right at Lucas's chest. If you and this brat aren't gone in 5 seconds, I'm calling the cops. I'll have you arrested for trespassing and vagrancy. Any normal man might have snapped. A lesser father might have shouted back, causing a terrifying scene. But Lucas possessed the quiet power of a man who truly controlled his own destiny. He didn't say a single word to Thorne. He simply knelt down on the cold pavement. He placed both of his large hands gently over Mia's ears. He looked right into his daughter's frightened eyes and gave her a warm, reassuring smile. He wanted to make sure she didn't hear another word of the landlord's toxic poison. He was showing her that true strength doesn't require screaming. Once Mia was calm, Lucas stood back up. He kept his body positioned between the aggressive men and the crying flower girl. He reached into the deep pocket of his stained jacket. He pulled out an older model smartphone. It looked like a cheap burner phone. Thorne smirked, thinking the poor driver was trying to call for some kind of help. But that device was a heavily encrypted satellite phone. It was directly connected to the executive boardroom of the Sterling Hospitality Group. Lucas kept his eyes locked dead onto Thorne's face. His thumb hovered over the screen. He was about to make a move that would change everything. Go ahead and call your little friends. Thorne sneered, crossing his arms in defiance. Maybe they can pick you up in a garbage truck. Lucas didn't blink. He pressed a single speed dial button and raised the phone to his ear. The line connected instantly. Execute Protocol Alpha for the West 5th Street retail block. Lucas spoke with absolute authority. Total acquisition. Effective immediately. He lowered the phone and slipped it back into his pocket. Thorne let out a loud, obnoxious laugh. Total acquisition? The landlord wiped a fake tear from his eye. What kind of cheap movie are you living in, pal? He stepped forward, kicking another broken rose toward Lily. You have 55 minutes left. I want this trash cleared out, or I'm calling the police. Lily buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Lucas gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Breathe, Lily, he said softly, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. Just give it 10 minutes. Mia looked up at her father with complete trust. She didn't know about bank accounts or real estate portfolios, she just knew. Her dad always fixed things. The alley was tense and suffocating. Thorne checked his gold watch every 2 minutes, eager to make the call. The debt collector cracked his knuckles, ready to start throwing Lily's buckets into the street. Then, a low rumble echoed off the brick walls. 3 matte black luxury SUVs turned the corner in perfect synchronization. They completely blocked the alley entrance. Thorne frowned, his arrogant posture faltering for a second. The doors of the lead vehicle opened simultaneously. 4 men in sharp, tailored suits stepped out. Leading them was David, the senior executive assistant of the Sterling Hospitality Group. Thorne's eyes went wide. He recognized David immediately from a recent business magazine cover. Thorne had been begging David's office for a meeting for 6 months. He desperately wanted a contract with the Sterling Group. Thorne shoved past the debt collector, suddenly wearing a desperate, greasy smile. Mr. David. Thorne practically tripped over his own feet as he rushed forward. What an absolute honor to have you on my property. If I had known you were coming, I would have prepared a proper welcome. David didn't even look at him. He walked right past the sweating landlord. David stopped directly in front of the man, in the dirty delivery jacket. Without a word, David bowed deeply. "Mr. Chairman," David said clearly, his voice carrying through the quiet street. "The acquisition is complete." Thorne's jaw dropped. The blood drained completely from his face, leaving him looking like a ghost. The debt collector took 3 quick steps backward, suddenly realizing he was on the wrong side of this fight. Lucas finally took his hands off Mia's ears. He stood up straight, his entire posture changing. He no longer looked like a tired driver. He radiated the immense power of a man who built empires. "David." Lucas gestured toward Thorne. "Who currently owns this retail block?" David opened a leather folder and pulled out a crisp legal document. "As of 3 minutes ago, the Sterling Hospitality Group owns the entire street." "And as your first order of business?" Lucas asked. His eyes locked onto Thorne. "We are terminating the property management contract of Mr. Marcus Thorne." David turned to the trembling landlord. "You are officially fired, Mr. Thorne. You have 5 minutes to vacate the premises before our security team forcibly removes you." Thorne's knees buckled. He fell onto the dirty pavement, landing right in the middle of the crushed white roses. His arrogance was entirely gone, replaced by pure panic. "Please, wait," Thorne begged, reaching out with shaking hands. "I didn't know who you were. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood clean. You were trying to destroy a kind woman who gave her last piece of food to a hungry child," Lucas said, his voice cold and unforgiving. "Get off my property, Thorne." The security team stepped forward, grabbing Thorne by his expensive jacket and dragging him toward the street. The debt collector didn't wait to be told. He turned and sprinted down the alley, disappearing into the city traffic. Lucas turned back to Lily. She was still sitting on the ground, staring up at him in absolute shock. Lucas reached out and helped her up. He didn't look at her with pity. "Welt, think." Lucas reached out. He looked at her with profound respect. "Lily, I'm Lucas Sterling." He smiled warmly. "And I happen to be looking for someone with a good heart and an incredible work ethic." David handed Lucas a second document. Lucas held it out to Lily. "This is an official appointment letter," Lucas explained softly. "I want you to be the global director of floral supply for our entire hotel chain. It comes with a full executive salary, premium medical coverage for your mother, and a signing bonus that clears all your debts today." Lily looked at the paper, her hands trembling violently. She tried to speak, but her throat was completely tight. Tears of overwhelming relief spilled down her cheeks. She dropped to her knees, hugging little Mia tightly as she cried into the child's shoulder. Witnessing Lily choke back tears, we realize justice always arrives right on time. If you believe that God always protects honest fathers, leave the declaration, "I believe in a father's love and justice," in the comments below. This spectacular turnaround is proof that you should never back down from a failure. Hit that subscribe button right now to become part of our community and never miss these profound life lessons. The weeks that followed felt like a beautiful dream. Lily moved her mother into a world-class care facility. She took over the corporate floral department with an unmatched passion. Her kindness transformed the entire office culture, but more importantly, she transformed Lucas's home. She started spending her weekends with Lucas and Mia. They would cook dinner together, laughing until their stomachs hurt. Mia finally had the maternal warmth she had been missing her entire life. Lucas found a partner who loved his daughter for who she was, not for the billionaire lifestyle. 6 months later, Lucas took Lily to the private botanical gardens at his estate. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over thousands of blooming white roses. It was a tribute to the day they met. Lucas stopped walking and took a deep breath. He looked at Lily, seeing the incredible woman who had shared her last meal with a stranger. He dropped to one knee. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a vintage diamond ring, a precious family heirloom that belonged to his late mother. He wasn't proposing as a billionaire looking for a trophy wife. He was proposing as a single father who had finally found the missing piece of their family. Lily gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Through tears of pure joy, she nodded, yes. Before he could even finish the question, the greatest gift for a single father is finding the true mother for his child. If you believe that God always protects honest fathers, leave the declaration, "I believe in a father's love and justice," in the comments below.